লাগে আপনি দূরে কাম দেন কাছে ভালো কালকে কালকে আছে রাতে কাজ করতেছে কালকে দিন আছে কালকে কাজ শেষ হয়ে গেলে রাত্রিবেলায় যে বসে দিন থেকে বিকেলবেলা আপনার অফিস এমনিতে আপনার এমনিতে আমি শরীর ফিরে বাড়ি খাওয়াইবেন না ভলিউম দিচ্ছেন কতটা আছে 6 আছে হ্যালো 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 না 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 12 ঠিক আছে মানে আপনার কান ঠিক আছে তো বেশি হচ্ছে না তো হ্যালো মাইক্রোফোন টেস্ট হ্যালো চেক 1 2 3 হ্যালো
Okay, well, welcome to the second last day of a very exciting week that we've had. We've been saving the best for the last. So I'm very happy that you're here. About Claudi Carreras. Claudi Carreras is you'll have to forgive my Spanish, is is an independent curator, editor, and photography researcher who has curated numerous exhibitions and book editions, including Cuba Mia, Frontiere Transnacional, and Estaciones Resiliencia. I'm getting all of this wrong, I'm sure, but at least you're the only ones who can tell. And Laberinto de Miradas. A survey of documentary photography in Ibero-America. He was director for the first meeting of Latin American photographic collectives in Sao Paulo, and is also the director of Encounter of Photo Collectives, which is supported by the Ministry of Culture of Spain. Claudi Carreras has combined different essays in the construction of the visibility of Latin American identity that will prove to be more than the sum of the parts. The photographers that he will show in the talk have worked for years on the subjects they portray in Latin America. A fertilization ground for many of us, and where many of us have met. America is absolutely stunning, and I think we have a lot to learn from that. But I believe personally we also have a lot to learn from Latin America in terms of its politics, in terms of its teaching. The pedagogic models in Brazil, in Uruguay is quite incredible. And while I've never been able to confirm it, I'm told that there is in the library in, I think it is in Colombia, they have a library where they say that photography was discovered in Latin America considerably before Fox Talbot and Daguerre. I don't know. These are contested issues, but at least the debates are there. Well, thank you very, very much for being here. Claudio, the show's yours.
You're here. So, thank you very much for coming. My English, it's not so good, so I try to speak slowly. But at the first time, I want to say special thanks to Shobimela Festival, of course to Shahidul, and all of the team, and all the institutions that are involved in this amazing project. It's a really big pleasure for me try to connect the photography that are produced in Latin America with other regions, especially in this complex moment. I'm sure that we need to do division between Europe or United States of America, especially in this moment. And one of the things that I want to say is that America, it's not only the United States of America. America is a continent, really rich and diverse. And in this moment, they have with a lot of problems. And I'm really happy to stay here to share with you many of the things that we are doing in Latin America. I'm from Spain, but I love Latin America. I invested in Latin America 20 years ago, working around in many countries, but I lived in Sao Paulo during the last 6 years. I lived in Ecuador 2 years. I'm based in Mexico, in Buenos Aires, in Argentina. And the video that I share with you in this moment, it's the video of Paracienfoco, that was the festival that I was the curator in the last 4 editions. But it's a really beautiful country, a colonial country in the Rio de Janeiro state. And we do one festival like this one with invited people, with exhibitions. We don't have so many spaces for the exhibitions, and we decide to put the exhibitions in the streets. And working in the streets, I think, is one of the most interesting things in this moment to share with a lot of people the discussions of photography. Well, I don't talk about my work, or I talk about my work, but talking about the Latin American photography. And I try to show to you 3 different exhibitions that I curated. And we can discuss about the topics, about the ideas of the exhibitions. But the first time, I want to ask to you, what do you think when we talk about Latin America photography? So what's the first picture that comes to your mind when we talk about Latin America? I share with you the first picture that I saw. I'm from Barcelona, and when I saw this picture from Graciela Iturbide, I said, wow, what's amazing place in the world that they want us in the heart of the people. And it's amazing, it's so strange, it's magical. And the photography that are produced in Latin America, it's always assimilated by many words like exotic photography, beautiful landscapes, beautiful men, beautiful women, revolutions, indigenous people, magics, religions, syncretism, different cultures, and the word that I think define better the idea of the people have about Latin America. It's an exotic country with a lot of poor people and with a lot of revolutions, social revolutions, magical things. That works, for example, is for Javier Silva Meynel from Peru. He works with indigenous people in Iquitos, in the rainforest, and he asked for the people construct the picture. It's a stage photography, it's already made, but it's really different than it was a reality. So 4 years ago, I prepared one video for one conference, one international conference, about the idea, the paradigms, and the stereotypes of the Latin American photography. And for start, I will share with you that video about the things that the people think that happen in Latin America. It's talking about the stereotypes and the paradigms. Well, this video was an assignment for talking about the problems and the situations in Latin America. I was jury in the last edition of WordPress Photo, and I can say to you that many of the ideas that we have about the Latin America are the same things today that we. One of the things that I think that we need to do is to think about the kind of images that we can see about Latin America and discuss the stereotypes. So this is the selection of one of my last exhibitions with Yata Canabrava that we create for the Latin American Forum in Sao Paulo. And we can see here, this exhibition is Archivo Ex Machina, the name, and we try to do a reflection about the story of the Latin American photography, how starts this story. And here, for example, we can see a work of José Domingo Lasso from Ecuador that is an amazing work that you can see strange things in the picture. Like see, for example, you can see here. A statement of photographer José Domingo Lasso about the city of Quito is the explicit anticipation of the gentrification that took place in today's urban modernization process. The indigenous element, José Domingo Lasso says in Spanish, but I read directly in English, the indigenous element disfiguring everything land, giving the faintest sense of our people and our culture. The material produced by José Domingo Lasso from this past century was retrieved by his grandson, François Lasso, in order to erase the indigenous from the pictures. The photographer scratched the glass, plates, the negatives in the past, and tried to erase the indigenous people. Here, José Domingo Lasso tries in her pictures to erase or transform the race like a French woman. They are indigenous, but José Domingo paint in the films for try to transform the story of the country, making more European the city of Quito. That is amazing work, historical work. They published the books without indigenous people. You can see here. To do beautiful the pictures. José Domingo works with indigenous community in the Ecuadorian Amazonian. He takes some pictures of the different communities. And we present the work in the exhibition with light and with the other pictures for try to say to the viewer that the light comes over to the reality and they are the original people from Latin America. Other work that is amazing is the work of Eustáquio Neves from Brazil. Eustáquio, using periodical articles and classified ads offering jobs, investigates the daily habit of judging black people and by their looks. It could be called Good Hope, a name given to the slave ships that at the end of their voyage attempted to serve for his destruction of people's called slavery. Eustáquio is an Afro-American photographer, and he always worked about the idea of identity of the black people, of the Afro-American people in Brazil, and Brazil is one of the most racist states in the world in this moment, was the last one of erased the slavery, and they have a lot of problems at that moment with more than 50% of the people Afro-descendant. So that work with many layers of information works about the black identity in Brazil. Other work that we present in the exhibition is the work of the archive of Javier Núñez del Arco, that is an artist that collects pictures, and that pictures are from Muñoz Reyes, one of the first engineers that works in Bolivia, formed in the School of Construction and Mining in Lima. And this is an integral part of the graphic treasure found in old show box 15 years ago in a Bolivian antique shop. The lost archive of one German photographer, cinematographer, writer, and war correspondent that goes to Bolivia during the Second World War, who later settled down in Bolivia. And this picture for me is amazing for talking about the idea of the people have from Bolivia, the poor countries, and from Latin America. You can see the war here, and you can see that kind of emperor, Nan, and they put the indigenous to taking the pictures with really stereotypical picture. That is the work of the mines, the owner of the mines. You can see here the owner, and you can see all of the workers. That seems like death people. It's so horrible picture for the first century in Bolivia. I present some pictures about how we work in the exhibitions for share with you. That was the exhibition in the Latin American Forum for discuss the original, the stereotypes and paradigms about Latin American photography. One of the amazing works that we found in this research was the work of the Japanese explorer, Rikyo Sugano. Rikyo was born in 1887, was a Japanese adventurer who traveled around the world portraying himself in unusual shots in his cast for the exotic. He appears in this exhibition as the first man obsessed with the selfies. The material showcased here was first found and investigated at the Centro de la Imagen by Jorge Villacorta that he stayed in Europe. We can see the people arriving and taking pictures from the indigenous, but Rikyo always takes pictures for himself, and he always stayed in the pictures. It was the precursor of the selfies. But it's incredible. You can other amazing work that I'm really happy to share with you. It's the work of the Fototeca of Pachuca in Mexico. The mythical Mexican is in the country, world famous icon with embodied feelings ranging from joy to violence. We can evidence that the construction of such spent in the photographic representation out of the risky boundaries that is none of this accidental. So one of the most famous revolution was the Mexican Revolution, and we can see the stage photography, the representation of the war in every picture. They try to feel natural, but here, for example, you can see looking the camera, simulating the war, generating a theatrical scene of the war in the revolution, present portraits of the revolution, because the people from Mexico and Archivo of the world in this project. Okay, the idea of the historical process in Latin America. The second part of the exhibition was with manipulation of the archives, working with photographers and artists that making ready-mades of these pictures, these images. The first one that I share is Marcelo Brodsky. The work, in this case, the work of Marcelo is based in 1968 in different capitals of the world and their ideas, all of them based on archive pictures of different photographers. Marcelo, this is the right time to discuss the ideas of the movements in Latin America, especially political movements. In 1968, the ideas that were raised are the same debated to this day, ideas that have marked several generations and have powerful influenced the transformation. So that one, for example, is a picture of Rodrigo Moya, that one, the other, in the reclaims of the people in 1968. And I think it's really important to remember that now with all of the things that are happening in our world. And you can be pictures from Washington, from Praga, from London, from many capitals in the world on that time. I think that we are now living a similar situation. And the other work that I show to you is a recreation of the archive from João Pina. João is a Portuguese photographer that are based in Sao Paulo, in Brazil. He finds one of the most important archives in South America, the archive of the Operación Condor, the death archive. João Pina says, I discovered the existence of the Operación Condor, a secret plan dating back to 1975, at the height of the Cold War that brought together 6 Latin American countries, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Uruguay, and Paraguay, living under right-wing mechanisms by sharing information, resources, techniques of torture, and political prisoners. These countries planned to destroy the political opposition which they called. You can see the first one was pictures directly from the archive of Brazil, but here you can see recreations of the judgments to the militaries that participates in the Operación Condor, or that airplane, for example, that was used to kill people living to the river in Argentina, or the spaces where the things happen. So it's really important to remember, it's really important the memory for the Latin America about the time of the dictator. This is the work of João Pina, one of the most important works because it talks about many countries in the region. That's its other amazing work of the photographer is Andrés Felipe Orjuela Castañeda from Colombia. Andrés said, in Colombia, an agreement was signed to avoid encouraging violence through media images. In response to the bloody scenes, Andrés Felipe, on the streets, saw boxes of photographers in front of the old building of the newspaper. Inside the boxes, he found these pictures. He decided to take all of the pictures from the boxes and recreate and paint the pictures with oil and talk about the historical violence in Colombia, about the problem of the drugs. This is really interesting picture because he is one of the narco traffickers more important. He appears in the series of Narcos in Netflix. That's what pictures finding in the box inside the newspaper, in the front of the newspaper. The other artist that I'm showing in this exhibition is Bernardo Oyarzún. He is one indigenous from the south of Chile. Bernardo is Mapuche indigenous, and he's exhausted because Bernardo have face of suspect. And many times a police in Chile takes Bernardo because he is like a suspect. And he decides to put, okay, I'm suspect, why? A criminal and suspect, Bernardo Oyarzún, in the last stop of this overview of the archive proposed by the show, by putting together photography, document, photography, art, and photography performance. He reminds all of us that we accept mistaken views. We present many pictures of the family of Bernardo because they are suspects too. So the last work is another kind of approximation to the archive. It's a work of André Prenteado from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and documents can be created to interpret the past, even if they are contemporary documents. André Prenteado traced back the events of an unknown historical hurricane that was not portrayed, the revolt of the Cabanos, in the Brazilian it's Cabanagem, in the northern forest of Brazil. This work shows that at any time, yesterday, today, or tomorrow, the resentment and being disregarding by the government authorities and abandonment of the tropics led to hatred and violence. That was an amazing event, historical event, in the rainforest of Brazil, in the north of Brazil, Cabanagem, who more than 1,000 people was killed. Nobody knows in Brazil nothing about that, and the story, it's now closed, nobody studied, and André tries to recreate the sense of that fact and working about the idea of memory and the spaces of memory. Our publisher house in Brazil published a book of André that is an amazing book that the name is Cabanagem, idea to try to remember that kind. So that was the exhibition Archivo Ex Machina that tried to reflect pictures of Latin America, the story of the image of Latin America. The other exhibition that I created last year, but you can see today in Quito, in the Cultural Center of Ecuador, it's Visible Cities. I worked with the people from the Fundación García Márquez, journalist, and we decided to talk about the relation between the text and picture in a big production for talking about the future of the cities and the present of the Latin American city. I need to go quickly. So that's it, the pictures of the exhibition, and the first work that we show, it's the Claudia Jaguaribe work. Claudia Jaguaribe carried on her project in two Brazil principal cities, Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, which a hugely creative approach, Jaguaribe has digitally reconstructed impossible perspectives of the two great cities, multiplying in the viewer. The exponential growth of this megalopolis, using countless aerial views, she explores a widespread and very real issue about the big cities of Latin America, how to fit so many people of different places. That is the book that we create in our publisher house about the work of Claudia Jaguaribe. It's an interesting book, but it's a 20 meters book of an imaging point of view by helicopter of the city of Sao Paulo. It's the book of Never Endless. And it's so huge because Sao Paulo is a city with more than 20 million people. It's a megalopolis. We have all mixed in Sao Paulo. And that book was really crazy and complicated for you. We can put the book in all of this space. Okay, I need to go quickly because we have a lot of things to do and short time. This is the work of Rio de Janeiro, of the same artist. Another point of view with Oscar Castillo from Venezuela. From his native Venezuelan, Oscar Castillo portrays with sharp contrast the social tensions that have arisen in his country in recent years. The poor neighborhoods, the center, the entire city is affected by the uncertainty that has. One of the other work that I want to show is about Cuba. Tomás Munita is one of the most important photojournalists that are working in Latin America. He's from Chile. And Tomás Munita photographs contemporary Cuba and the changes in the country it's currently undergoing. I love this picture, but it's after and aware of the uncertainties weighing over. We are exploring in the exhibition the relationship between the text and the images. So you have many, many texts in all of the space. The work of Nicolás Janowski, Adrift in Blue, is from Argentina. It's possible the most experienced practitioner of these intercollections, explores the living conditions of the inhabitants of the southern seas in Ushuaia. Janowski generates portraits, sensations, and modes that examine and question life of the limits under this a narrative which, whilst clearly contemporary, is also timeless. It's an amazing universe of the most southern city in the world, the end of the world, Ushuaia, that is the port who goes to Antarctica. We try to present the exhibition like a polyeder with many kinds of cities and many kinds of representation of the photographers. Adriana photographer is a Brazilian photographer living in Mexico City and deals one really important topic in South America about the 43 students and teachers who went missing 2 years ago. The images selected for this book, for this exhibition, have 3 projects made with an iPhone. The first of these projects captures a sense of the daily lives of the families of the students who disappeared, an attempt to recover a semblance of everyday existence, saying that many of the families had no portraits of the young people who had gone missing. Zebrauskas took up the genre himself, photographing the survivors. Finally, in a language conceived for Instagram and social media, she made detailed color photographs of the village in the region. And I share with you a video of Yael Martinez, who talks about the same conflict in Mexico, in the state of Guerrero, and talk about her family.
Me siento vacía, me siento destrozada. No sé, es algo muy horrible que no le deseo nada. Éramos una familia de 10 hermanos. Como toda familia fuimos muy unidos. Éramos una familia muy hermosa, pues, porque después de todo lo que vivimos, uno valora lo que atrás pasó. Yo tengo muy buenos recuerdos de cuando éramos niños. No, nunca se me olvida, no se me va a olvidar. David, Nacho sí tenían hijos. Nacho dejó una niña que ahorita la niña ya tiene 3 años. David también tenía una niña, tenían sus esposas. Mi hermano Beto también dejó 3 niños. Un niño de 6 años, un niño de 7 y una niña de 4 años. No, mi papá no quiere volver, él tiene miedo. De hecho, viene, pero viene a escondidas un día y se va al otro día. A él sí le dijeron directamente que ni viniera, porque aquí cerca estaba una persona que se dedicaba a levantar gente y le dijo que pues a él se lo querían comer vivo, y mi papá pues tiene miedo y ya no creo que mi papá vuelva. Y ya esta familia ya se destruyó y yo ya no creo que nada pueda seguir igual. Y ahorita con lo que pasó con el caso de los muchachos de estudiantes de Ayotzinapa, nos están ayudando porque ya nos hicieron pruebas, nos tomaron muestras de sangre a mi mamá, a mí, pero es la fecha en que no nos dan respuesta. Y sí los seguimos buscando, la verdad. Pues quisiéramos saber si realmente están muertos, porque pues ya sería un gran alivio. Porque todavía, para no ver lo contrario, yo no quiero hacerme la idea de que ya no están. Ahora ya no somos nada de lo que éramos antes. Éramos 10, ahora somos 7. Nos quitaron 3 hermanos que la verdad no merecían lo que les pasó. Estaban muy chicos. Desaparecieron 2 de mis hermanos en Iguala. Uno se llamaba Ignacio Granda Cruz, el otro se llamaba David. Uno tenía 19 y el otro desaparecieron. Los buscamos. Fuimos a la CMF a Iguala. Dejamos datos, no nos dieron respuesta. Mi hermano estaba en el Cerezo y 4 meses después de que mis hermanos desaparecieron, me mataron a otro hermano que se llamaba Beto. A él lo mataron en la cárcel. Según dicen que se suicidó, pero yo sé que no. Y después de esto, pues, todos nos separamos. Se destruyó toda la familia. Yo sueño con ellos, que están vivos, que me abrazan. Hasta mi hermano, que yo sé que lo enterré, él me habla y me dice que no está muerto y me abraza. Salió en el periódico que algunos restos parecían ser de mis hermanos y por eso nos hicimos las pruebas de mis hermanos para enterrarlos juntos, siquiera tengamos un lugar a donde llorarles, porque les lloramos pero no sabemos ni dónde están, para que ellos descansen y nosotros también.
Yael is the husband of this woman that this thing happened in her family. Other work that we show in the exhibition is the work of Federico Rios, talking about the Colombian war. Rios, it's focused, the work of Rios is focused on the Comuna 13 in Medellin, the city where he lives. Rios has been working on the project for more than 5 years. The thin line between harmonious coexistence in the comunas of Medellin and the pressure exerted by the forces of order is the subject of these pictures. Though they deal specifically with the circumstances of changing Medellin, they illuminated issues on the peripheries of many Latin American cities. And that is the work of Rodrigo Abt, one of the most Latin American experienced photojournalists. He's Argentinian, based in Peru, where he was producer of the series about the establishment of illegal settlements in Madre de Dios in Peru. Of this kind found in many Latin American countries, you can find some things like that. People leave the big cities in search of a better future and try to make a home for themselves wherever they can, even if it means occupying an abandoned mine. In the exhibition, we talk about gender too. For me, it's really important to try to present works of women photographers, discuss the idea of the problems of the woman universe in our world. In Latin America, you have many cases of abuse, and it's really important to do. And that's a work of Cristina de Midel, that he's in this exhibition too. In the work, is a Spanish photographer now based in Sao Paulo, and you can see the work of Cristina of Afronauts, that it's the last work that she present, and it's really interesting because it's a woman point of view about the problem of the prostitution by telling the other side of the story. The middle put classificate ads in the local press to find clients of the prostitutes who would be willing to pose for her. Usually we always say the problems of the prostitutions talking about women, but obviously you can see the men's. It's the same thing like in drugs, usually the drug. I think that it's really important to the drugs now in United States, in Europe, in other places. Furtive encounters. Maya Godet is a Mexican photographer, documentalist photographer, presents a series of images drawn from several projects. She has been working of the science she began taking photographers under the title The Last Cinderella. The Mexican photographer leads us on a tour of the iconic and representative aspects of the femininity in her country. It is the result of several years working. Myths and expectations are confronted in these pictures that portray the daily experience of a gender stereotype in a big Latin America city. And the last work in the exhibition, and was an outdoor installation, it's the work of the Brazilian photographer Angelica Das. Angelica is an Afro-descendant photographer who have a lot of problems in Brazil for her body. And she decides to do Humanae. Humanae is a big project, and Angelica is working to take the color of the skin of many people in the world. Angelica has more than 3,000 pictures in many, many places talking about the color of humanity. You don't have black people or white people or yellow people. We have an universe of colors, and Angelica is working to talk about that, talking with chills about the color of her skins. And we decide to invite Angelica to Ecuador and to take pictures of the people from Quito, one of the most biodiverse cities, and to do an installation in the streets. I'm really interested in use the potential of photography and communication in all of the aspects and working in the streets. We do an amazing project in Ecuador, working with many artists that are coming to the city, taking pictures of different situations, working with anthropologists, working with sociologists, to try to discuss together about the social problems in Latin America. And we present all of the productions in the streets, and we decide to generate discussions about the different aspects of reality. What do you think? We can continue it?
Maybe we can do it later on if there's a chance.
Okay.
Do you have a quick Q&A? Yeah.
So,
We'll eat into the question and answers. I'm sure people will have questions.
okay, we can finish here, and if you like, we can do that one later.
Any questions? Is that a stretch or an arm raise for questions? No, I don't see questions. While we're waiting for questions, I actually want to remind you of an interesting story because you showed us Graciela's Lady with the Iguana.
Yeah.
We very used to using email. So I wanted the large format picture. So I was going to Mexico for something else, and she said, okay, well, I'll give you a print. I thought, a print from Graciela, hey, that's a bonus. But the most interesting thing was where she gave me the print. She said, you have to come here to collect it. And it was the house of Manuel Alvarez Bravo.
Yeah.
So I went to the house of Manuel Alvarez Bravo to collect that print from her. And all those pictures are all around. It was quite dramatic. But I just want to ask one question. I mean, while Latin American photography is not so well known, we have these great photographers.
I'm sure about that.
Bravo, Sebastián Salgado, Graciela Iturbide. You also showed Pablo Monasterio
Yes,
and other people. So where has all this come from? You really have a tremendous tradition of very, very fine photographers.
No, and I think that in Latin America you have one of the most important meetings around the people from Latin America. We have many encounters. We discuss a lot of many situations, but I'm not sure why the production that has been doing in Latin America don't go outside the borders of Latin America. We are really well connected inside of the countries. It's strange because you have countries many different, like Bolivia, Mexico, or the necessities of the. But I'm not sure the reason.
Were you going to ask something, Lasana? Yeah?
The first, about the books. You say you make one exhibition with word and image. Can you talk more about this exhibition? Because you just saw one image.
Yes, I'm really interested in the relation between the text and the pictures. And we decide to generate a project with the Fundación García Márquez, that it's one of the most important journalist foundation in Latin America. He was created by the Nobel Prize Gabriel García Márquez. And we work together with 10 journalists and 10 photographers to work in try to show different aspects of the societies. The journalists make the releases, the chronics, and the photographers work with the pictures. And in the exhibition and in the book, because we have an interesting book that is in English, it's the Visible Cities. And the idea is to try to find the ways for discuss about the reality in the same hierarchy using the text and the pictures. It's interesting because we tried not to put the hierarchy before the text and after the pictures. We tried to generate the relation in the separate. So we are working with the photographers and we are working with the writers, and we try to show different aspects of the connections between the two things. And that was amazing because in the exhibition you can see many texts, you can read many texts, you can hear some text too, and you can feel two different kinds to generate different universe. The visual universe with video and photography, and the writer universe. So it's interesting, the relation between the two things. But not in the newspaper way that you can see the picture always illustrating the text. If not, we try to generate projects that the pictures working together and the text in other ways. So it's complementary, not it's one thing depending the other.
You said you had two questions. They take the mic away. Okay.
Yeah, because I want to know where you're from. Sorry, I was not in the beginning, but I feel it's Brazil.
I'm coming from Brazil, but I'm from Barcelona, from Spain. And I'm based in Latin America the last 20 years.
So my question is what you try to answer now. How does the continent, the country himself are connected? There is a network for photographer, for the artists. How we know all this country so well?
They start really a long time ago. In the 17th, there was the first Latin American encounter in photography. It's created by Pedro Meyer and some people in the Consejo Mexicano of the Photography. And it was the most important meeting about the international country from Latin America. And he tries to discuss about what's the Latin American photography, and he decided that it's really important to our thinking together to try to be more visibility. So they are working, the Colloquio of Latin American Photography was 6 editions in Mexico, in Venezuela, in Cuba, in 1983 too, and now you have the Forum of Latin American Photography that we are the curator, and Yata is my partner, is the director. And it's this 5 forum that they present, and you have many encounters between the cities. Many photographers are traveling around all of the Latin American places. So I don't know why, but it's really more well connected. For example, if we talk about European photography, we can't imagine a networking meeting like happened in Latin American photography. I don't know why. but it's historical important. I think for historical reasons, for political reasons, obviously the political time, the dictatorial time was really important, but many people, many photographers from many countries working together to try to find ways for visibility. And you have a lot of festivals. You have, only in Brazil, you have more than 30 festivals a year. It's huge. You have 3 or 4 big festivals, but you have many festivals in every state. So it's a really rich movement, but not much people knows outside the borders of Latin America.
I have some good news. Louis Patino, the next person, is here, but that means that we have his files, which we were worried about. So I think we have time and we could show that last film.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah? Can we have the lights off, please?
So that is the last exhibition that I'm just preparing. We can turn off the lights. It's the last exhibition. It's not an exhibition yet. It's my research. But I will try to talk about the Amazonian region, not only the Amazonian in Brazil, the Brazil Amazonian. Brazil is a huge country that have borders with 10 other countries. So imagine it's like a continent inside of America. But I try to show different realities from Amazonia, from all of the 6 countries that are involved in the area. The first one that I share with you is the Claudia Andújar works. She's one of the oldest works from 14 years ago, from the Yanomamis indigenous community in the northern of Amazonia. That it's really huge story. Claudia Andújar was involved with the communities of indigenous during more 15 years, and that is for a medical campaign, and you can see the numbers of the people. And it's usually like the Occidental culture looks the indigenous people, only with numbers, with words, with definitions. They are numbers for us. And in this work, in this campaign, medical campaign, Claudia photographed these communities. And it's really interesting because Claudia has born in Hungary, and he was deported during the Second War, and he is tattooed with the number of the Jewish people. So it's an interesting relation between the indigenous people and the Jewish people of Claudia. That is the other work of Claudia Andújar. For me, it's one of the most amazing photographers that work with indigenous communities in America. You can feel the atmosphere of the spaces. You can feel the ayahuasca. The ayahuasca is the drug that the indigenous take for no other reality. And you can feel really another approximation to the daily life. It's not strange people. It's other kind of approximation. That's one of the most classical works. The book of Claudia Amazonian, it's one of the most important photo books in South America. And the work is amazing. So it's a historical work, and now we are working in contemporary works. One of them is from Peru, the Amazonian Peruvian, Iquitos, Madre de Dios, and the part of the northern of Peru. Nolte, that Musuk is talking to about the sensation of the ayahuasca drug, the feelings that the people have when take it, and the problems of deforestation, the ecological situation in Amazonia, generating this nocturne point of view about the forest in a magical stories. Because the forest at night with the sounds, with the feeling that you have, it's so great. And Musuk photographed too. It's really young. Musuk is 29, 28 years old, but it's working a lot in trying to communicate different cultures in Peru. And it's a magical work. I worked a lot with collective in Latin America. I was director of the meetings of the Latin American collective. That is an interesting movement because you have a lot of work, a lot of people working together for generate discussions. I think that the photography is sometimes really isolated of other areas, and it's important to do other acknowledgements about anthropology, sociology, magical, and that work was created with a shaman. The idea is one mythical story in the forest, in the rainforest, in the Iquitos, and talks about Leyenda de Toe, the legends of Toe. Toe is a young woman that can change her body and she can feels like many, many different animals. When you have one state of the drug of ayahuasca, you can change your body and you can feel that the animal that you want. So that is the legend of Toe, feeling inside of the rainforest of Amazonian. We are preparing this show for next year. I showed the pictures of Nicolas Janowski about Ushuaia, the end of the world. And Nicolas works in Bolivia too. Nobody knows, but Bolivia have Amazonian rainforest, not Amazonian river, but yes, Amazonian rainforest. And he works in black and white pictures, working with the culture. He's an anthropologist and really interested in the problems between petroleum, deforestation, and rainforest in other Latin American countries. What happened? Let me see what happened. And the last two works that I will show you, it's one The one is from Rodrigo Braga from Brazil. This is an artist that participates in the Bienal of Sao Paulo and many biennales, and they are working about the idea of the nature too, about the deforestation, about the nature inside an island, every time more closed, every time more damaged, with more problems. So he works with dead animals or with alive animals, but always making installations in the forest and talking about the idea of what happened with our nature, what the human beings are doing with the natural things, no? And the last one is this work of João Castillo from Brazil too, that decides, okay, if the humans will finish with the forest, the animals will come to our houses like an invasion. So João works with live animals in domestic spaces in house, and he puts that representations of the nature, of the forest, coming to our houses. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Claudio. Fantastic. Claudio is still around, so while we set up for the next show, perhaps you can find, if you still have unanswered questions, you could ask him at this stage. I'm afraid we have to move from here because you have to set up, no? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a short break. We're going to start at 6. Would you want to do a welcome address for Louis?
Sorry?
For Louis Petito, would you like to do the welcome address?
Okay.
Yeah?
Can do few sentences.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for
So
coming.
it's at 6, right?
It's at 6. Yeah.